Hey, this is Namdev Hardesty. I'm one of the founders of the MBA Studio, a design and marketing company in Minneapolis, and I'm also adjunct faculty at Minneapolis College of Art and Design. This is one of a series of videos of short 3 to 5 minute videos on topics related to design, business, and communications. So today's question, what should you steal from Target? If you run a small business, you work at a university, a nonprofit, here's what I think you should steal from Target. Your communications should start only trying to do one thing at a time. And I say this as this morning I was looking through some photos on my phone and I saw this awful flyer and I couldn't understand why I'd photographed it. It was like a mess and I could barely read it. And then I realized what I had done is I had seen it hanging in a Target. I thought the subject, or not a Target, in a Starbucks. And I thought the subject looked interesting, so I snapped a photo of it to remember it later. But it was classic university kind of design. It was supposed to be for a talk. There was no real headline. There was inexplicably a photo of the speaker, even though they're not famous. There was a full bio, way too much information, a bunch of social media stuff that it wasn't clear why I would be interested in it, and then a ton of texture. It was just a mess. And this is really typical, and this is very typical for nonprofits and education. It's almost like the more noble the cause, the crappier the design has to be and the less focused. So this is actually not for designers, because I don't think a designer was the criminal in this instance. This is for the people that who aren't trained in marketing, who are working in nonprofits and working in universities. I want you to go to a Target, an Apple, Starbucks, and start looking at their communications and realize that they do one thing at a time with each piece of paper that leaves that building. And the reason that they do this is because you have a finite amount of attention to give them. They can only ask for one thing at a time. And what a lot of you guys are doing out there is you're asking for a million things at a time every time you make a piece of graphic design. And you're demanding that I read too much, and you're covering up a sheet of paper and so much information that I can't possibly absorb it. You're actually doing me a disservice as part of your audience by not focusing down your message to what would be compelling enough to get me to act in some way. Okay? And if you look at an Apple, you know that that's not what they do, right? One thing at a time. The package is only the package. It only says Apple. It only says iPhone. It only says designed in Cupertino, California. You go into a Starbucks, rather than try to make one little printed piece that covers everything, there's multiple printed pieces because you let the person pick the thing that they need information about. The signs change out frequently, but they only sell one thing at a time. Okay, this is consistent. And it is not a case of, oh, well, Target, Apple, Starbucks, Nike, these are these huge corporations. They can afford to do one thing at a time. No, what it is that they can afford to do one thing at a time because they've only ever done one thing at a time. It's like the key difference between big business and small business. Small business tends to reek of this desperation of every time you have my attention, you're screaming in my face about too many things. Ask me for one thing. Give me one simple thing that you want me to do. So, what should you do? If you're doing a university lecture, okay, you have this thing that's potentially boring because it tends to be shrouded in sort of college speak. The first thing to do is get rid of the picture of the author. Nobody, or the speaker, nobody cares. There's no reason for me to see a picture of that person. They're not famous. I don't know who they are. It is not going to get me to go. It's not a photo of Oprah, right? Get rid of the bio. I don't need all of that information, okay? You're just trying to get my attention, not educate me in that instance, okay? Have a simple headline, either the lecture title. If the lecture title is boring, pull an interesting fact from what they're going to talk about, but do not stop working on that headline until it is something interesting that if you had the worst designed Microsoft Word flyer, giant Times New Roman centered, that it would still be compelling. And then give me a tiny bit of social proof. Okay, who is this person speaking and why should I trust them? Where have they been published? Where do they teach? Where do they write? blah, blah, blah. Who's recognized them? Again, not the bio. I don't want the bio. I just want a little bit of information to understand it. The same way that when I see a billboard and it has an Apple logo on it, that's the social proof. It says, I should pay attention to this because Apple made it. One takeaway I want to give you is a great quote from 37 Signals. Every time you add something, you take something away. So every time you add a piece of information in there, you take away from my ability to read the whole thing at once. So be very strategic about how much information you're giving me, how much texture, how many graphic elements, how many different typefaces. So that's my answer today for what should you steal from Target. If you have a question, hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Namdev, Namdev, or you can use our company Twitter, which is the MVA, like motor vehicle accident. You can also get in touch with us on our blog. It's the-mva.com. Thanks for your time.